The third law is the law of karma. The law of karma, in the word karma simply means action. The law of karma is also what you sow, you reap. So every action that you perform sets off a series of events in the universe. And ultimately karma is like an echo from the past that comes back to us as well. And therefore, to activate the law of karma, you have to do 2 or 3 things also. The first is recognize that in every moment of your life you have a choice. And you don't have choice between this or that, you have infinite choices. For example, right now I have the choice to stand on my head. Okay? I have the choice to stop giving this lecture and just walk out on all of you. I have the choice to say, oh, how beautiful you are, which you are. And I have so many choices this moment in my life. And out of all those choices, there's one choice which is the most evolutionary. But in any case, just to recognize the law of karma, the first thing is to recognize that I'm a choice maker. You're not a bundle of conditioned reflexes and nerves that's constantly being triggered by people and circumstance into predictable outcomes. So just to say, from now on, I'll make my choices consciously. I will know that every moment is a moment of choice, and therefore every moment is a moment of power. That's the first way you activate the law of karma. The second way you activate the law of karma is that you say, okay, if this is a choice that I make, when I make these choices, what are the consequences of this choice? Are they evolutionary? Are they good? Now, of course, the human mind cannot compute that, but your body can. So you say, should I do this? Then you listen to your body, and if your body makes little signal of comfort, then go for it. If your body feels a little uncomfortable, stop. That's all you have to do. You have a great computer here, and it's plugged into the cosmic computer. And your body will give you all the right answers if you ask the right questions. That's the second way you activate the law of karma. And third way you ask yourself also is, other people are going to be affected by my choices, not just me. As a result of that, will it increase the experience of love and happiness in their life? And if it is so, then again, that's a karmically correct choice. See, what we're doing this is we're activating the laws through which the universe, which in its basic state is an unmanifest field of intelligence, how the universe conceives, constructs and becomes physical reality. Just have to copy that, Just have to, in our life, simulate what's already happening in nature, because we're part of nature, we're not outside of nature. Okay, so those are 3 ways we activate the law of karma. Conscious choice making, listening to the body, saying, is this karmically good for me? And then the third one, is this karmically good for everybody else?
My question is on karma. I grew up in a Hindu family, and often karma is talked about as something that provides a balance in the world, but it can sometimes seem rigid, and it's a powerful influence over someone's life. And when I listen to you speak, I feel so much peace and so much hope. And you talk about presence and being as the keys to enjoying form and creating positive circumstances in your life or softening circumstances. And I wanted to know how karma fits into all of that, because there seems to be places in the world where there's not a lot of resources, where there's a lot of brutality. For example, I met somebody at work and she was a refugee from Afghanistan and she was a young girl. And the interpreter had told me that her brother and her father were killed in front of her and she had another brother taken. And then I later learned that a lot of times the Taliban doesn't take the young boys to fight, they take them and they use them as sex slaves. And when I hear about stories like this, I just wonder how I can stay aligned with love or trusting the universe when I'm not able to see through your eyes yet. And how do you hold both?
Thank you. Thank you. Now, of course, everybody is born into a certain external environment and also is born with certain predispositions. They may be partly genetic, they may be other things, that a person is born with certain patterns, in other words. We don't need to examine where they come from, but just to see the fact that the human being is first of all born into a certain environment, which may be violent, or it may be relatively peaceful, and the person is born with inner patterns. You inherit certain, even pain body is partly inherited. Some babies cry a lot. They have a relatively heavy pain body already in this world. Doesn't mean they're spiritually less advanced. The opposite may be the case. There's no knowing. Other babies are relatively peaceful. And so there's a whole set of conditioning that happens. You come into the environment with certain predispositions, then the environment conditions you further, and in all that there's no choice involved. It's just influences. And so you find yourself in this world with certain unconscious patterns that have become the conditioning of who the person is, the unconscious conditioning. So karma, as I see it, is the unconscious conditioning that runs your life. And that still applies to many humans. And karma is partly collective, you've been born into it, and partly personal, they come together. So really you can only understand karma not as an abstract subject external to yourself, because then you get into belief systems and philosophy. We're not going that way. You can only understand karma by observing yourself. And by observing, and then you'll know many other things. But you need to, really, if you want to understand karma, you need to look at yourself. And so I began to understand what karma is when there was something arose that was not part of karma at all. And really, here we come to the key. The arising of consciousness or presence or a spiritual awakening is not part of karma. It is another dimension that breaks into the karmic realm. So you do not become awakened by accumulating, as they sometimes say in the East, good karma. That's fine on this level. You can make the walls or the furniture in your prison a little bit more comfortable. But there is something totally from beyond karma that can come into your life at any point within the wheel of karma and rebirth. Rebirth is, of course, part of karma. The deeper meaning of rebirth is identification with form. We don't need to even believe in transmigration or whatever. You can look at rebirth in your own life. Every time you identify with a thought that arises, which is form, you are born into that thought. Because you identify, your sense of self is in it. That's karma. You're reborn. Karma then is unconscious identification with these patterns that you have inherited, the conditioned. Complete identification of consciousness with the conditioned patterns. So consciousness is dreaming, one could say. This is why we use the word awakening in many spiritual traditions. Consciousness is awakening. Consciousness is in a dreamlike state when you identified with the unconscious patterns. And then you are condemned to rebirth. In fact, many times every day, you are reborn into a reaction, an emotional, mental reaction. No presence at all, just rebirth into some form. Or you're reborn into thoughts that arise and you completely believe in every thought. And then you act from those thoughts and emotions. And the action creates further reactions, and the actions confirm to you that you were right. If you have certain mind patterns about, for example, that other people are basically dishonest, just one example of people. People are so dishonest, they're all trying to get something from me. That tends to confirm itself in your life experience. You can try it out, or you may have experienced it before you became more conscious. That habitual thought patterns that you identified with, and that is karma, creates in the external confirmation that it is correct. So if you think the world is full of evil people, you will meet many evil people. And in other words, unconscious people. And even people who are on the brink or who are halfway between conscious and unconscious, when you come together with them, your belief will pull them into unconsciousness. And that's karma. So karma is the complete absence of conscious presence, and so it's automatic. It plays itself out. And time does not free you of karma. That is a misperception, that if you only have enough time, eventually you can become free of karma. Karma renews itself and repeats itself. It's a wheel. And so the only thing that can free you of karma is the arising of presence. And why? How is it that for some person presence arises? I cannot tell you why. I only know that at any point in the wheel of karma, presence can come in. It can happen to this. It can happen to a criminal in prison, condemned to death. It can happen to somebody who's never heard of anything spiritual. It can happen to somebody who's been meditating for 30 years, or not happen to the same person who's been meditating for 30 years. So, in your own life, I can see from what you're saying that presence has already, I can sense that, presence has already come into your life. And presence frees you from karma, not all at once. Karma has an enormous momentum, meaning the patterns in yourself, the thought patterns, the emotional patterns, the reactive patterns. There's enormous momentum behind that. But as presence arises, gradually karma diminishes, the energy behind it diminishes. And gradually you experience a fading out of those patterns. They become weaker. You are no longer completely in the grip of those patterns. So as presence arises, there's a gradual fading out of karma. Not that it matters that much anymore, because once you are present, you can, as the previous questioner said, when we were talking about certain thoughts still arising, certain negative thoughts, that's still part of the karma, the old patterns, the unconscious habit patterns inherited. They still arise, but it's no longer problematic, and they no longer cause the suffering that they would have caused before, because they are seen in the light of awareness. So the light of awareness arises, and in the light of awareness, the patterns no longer dominate your life. They no longer run your life. And if occasionally it happens that the patterns do take over, then after a little while your presence returns and say, well, there it was again. Pain body is part of karma, which may be strong in some people, not so strong in others. And so as presence arises, you are freed from karma. And then you have another completely different factor coming into your life. And so, for example, for a person to become free of collective karma, you need a considerable amount of presence for that to come in, to remove, and it then will remove you in one way or another, either internally, you find yourself completely free, you might still live in a violent society, but internally you would be free. There is a possibility you can have a holy man or woman living surrounded by violence. It's possible. It's rare, but possible. Or very often it happens that life removes you out of there and you find yourself somewhere else. So let's say vast collective karma, for example, in the case of, let's say, you have the Taliban there, you have all kinds of unconscious movements, you had Soviet communism, you had National Socialism in Germany, and for a person being born into that and not being drawn into that unconsciousness requires considerable presence. So not that many people, for example, in Germany, when Hitler came to power, not many people were able to remove themselves. Some were. Some artists, some writers, they left. They could see what was happening, and they were strong enough not to be identified with the collective, when there had been a tradition of obedience to authority for hundreds of years, a tradition of following your leader, and so on. To take yourself out of that, collective karma requires considerable presence, but some people had it. So it is our destiny then to go beyond karma by being the receptacles for presence. All you can do to be helpful in this world and help others is those people that you come into contact with. Everybody in this who is awakening will find that sooner or later they become a kind of teacher to others. And what a spiritual teacher does, the teacher points out the possibility of awakening out of identification with unconscious patterns, which means the spiritual teacher teaches you to go beyond karma.
You want to hear me on Karma Yoga? Karma Yoga is the philosophy of action. It deals with the how of action, how the action should be performed so that it remains powerful in order to yield good results. And not only this, the actor or the doer should remain in freedom. See, the philosophy of action does not only deal with the quality of action, it also deals with the freedom of the actor. Both things should be there. The action should be powerful. The results should be maximum at the same time. Enjoying the results, or even while performing the action, the actor should not be lost in the process of action or in the joys of the results. In order to have a clear idea, when we see a flower, the image of the flower falls on our mind. The real essential nature of the mind is pure consciousness. Pure consciousness is bliss in its nature. That the plane of bliss, pure consciousness, receives the impression of a flower. That means the real nature of the mirror of pure consciousness is obstructed by the image of the flower. If the mind is absorbed in the beauty of the flower, then the mind has lost the grandeur of its own bliss consciousness. The philosophy of karma, or the karma yoga, it brings to us a technique of enjoying the flower where we are not thrown out of our bliss consciousness while enjoying the glory of the flower, the beauty of the flower. What does it do? It doesn't obstruct. It means the karma yoga. Karma yoga does not hinder the process of our experiencing the flower, but it raises our consciousness. It tells us that if through transcendental meditation we raise our consciousness and gain bliss consciousness in our mind, then the bliss consciousness will be wide awake in our mind, and yet that blissful mind will be able to experience the flower as ever. And when the flower is experienced by bliss consciousness, then the beauty of the flower is enhanced to million times. See, the mind is sad and see the flower, it don't seem to enjoy the beauty. If the mind is happy, you are in a happy mood, look at the flower and you enjoy the flower 100 times. The technique that Karma Yoga gives us in order to enjoy the flower to its maximum capacity is by improving the level of our consciousness, making our mind full with bliss consciousness, making our mind absolutely pure. Bliss consciousness is pure consciousness. That is the absolute purity of our mind. This is the technique that Karma Yoga gives us. Before we launch upon any action or experience, Karma Yoga demands that we meditate. Take our mind to bliss consciousness. Let bliss consciousness be filled in the very nature of our mind, so that no matter what we think or do or experience, we experience and think on that level of bliss consciousness. This means that we don't lose our own essential nature. This means we enjoy eternal freedom in bliss consciousness. We live in the living presence of God, and yet live in the world of experience of daily activities. This is the greatest blessing of Karma Yoga. It makes us more powerful, much more fuller for our experiences, and yet it leaves us in the eternal freedom of our own being. It leaves us in the infinite love of God in our life. So it is the Karma Yoga, it is the glory of Karma Yoga that handles both aspects of our life, objective sphere of our life and subjective sphere of our life. Subjectively, we are not lost in the bondage. If we looking at the flower, if we lose our own being, then we are lost in the experience of the flower. That means the process of experience has bound us. Now this is binding influence of action. Action, the process of perception of a flower is an action by us. And if we are lost in the beauty of the flower, that means if we are not able to hold on to bliss consciousness and we only enjoy the flower at the cost of bliss consciousness, then we are bound by the process of perception. This is called the bondage of action. The actor is bound by the action and by the fruit of action. So Karma Yoga gives us a way out of bondage in the field of action and out of bondage of the fruit of action. Both almost go hand in hand. But the technique is gaining purity of our consciousness. The technique is that our individual consciousness gains the status of cosmic consciousness. What is, when I say cosmic consciousness, let me make it clear. When during our meditation we meditate and the mantra becomes slow and the mantra goes off, and then we are left all by ourselves, we feel there is nothing but I am awake inside. That pure awareness, self-awareness, that is our state of being, that is pure consciousness. When that pure consciousness begins to be lived in a natural way, even when the mind is engaged in the process of experience and action in the outside world, then it is called cosmic consciousness. Self-consciousness gets transformed into the state of cosmic consciousness, and we begin to experience things in their much fuller values. At the same time, we don't lose the awareness of our own being. Now remember, this not losing the awareness of our own being is not on the level of thinking. We don't think that we are the pure being and we are consciousness and I am and that I am. We don't think like that. Naturally, when we have taken 2-3 dives in the morning, the mind gets filled with that pure consciousness, and through that pure consciousness we experience anything in the world. This is what Karma Yoga is. Karma Yoga is not maddening activity, blinding activity. No. Karma Yoga is pulling the arrow back. Yoga is pulling the arrow back. Karma is releasing it to go forward. In meditation, morning and evening, we sit and bring the mind back to the source of infinite energy and intelligence in the transcendental consciousness, in that pure consciousness. So, Karma Yoga makes us more powerful in the outer world by bringing our mind in tune with the source of infinite energy and intelligence in the transcendental field. Thereby, again, bringing our mind in tune with that plane of being, which is the plane of cosmic law, which is at the source of all the laws of creation. And thereby wins the favor of the whole nature for us. This is the great glory of Karma Yoga, that it not only makes us powerful, it not only makes our mind infinitely powerful by leading it to the source of energy and intelligence, but wins for us the sympathy of the almighty nature, makes for us the surroundings harmonious, at the same time leaves us in our eternal freedom of life. We enjoy the bliss consciousness of our own being. That is, we begin to live in the living presence of God. That bliss consciousness, that pure consciousness, state of cosmic consciousness is living presence of God. We begin to live God consciousness through all thick and thin of life. Our actions are powerful. The results of those actions are highly rewarding. At the same time, we live in freedom of life. Not only this, it shapes our life automatically on the level of righteousness, because whatever we think and do, naturally we think and do in accordance with the cosmic purpose of nature. in accordance with the natural laws, and therefore we are righteous by nature, we are powerful by nature, we are free by nature. We begin to live the highest state of life in the field of all activity. This is the glory of Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga has been misinterpreted very widely. The theory of non-attachment, they say the principle of non-attachment is you don't get attached yourself to the action or to the fruits of action. That means abandon the fruit of action. Such things are foreign to the spirit of Karma Yoga. Unfortunately, they are being taught on the field of Karma Yoga. But the great strength of Karma Yoga lies not in acquiring the thought of non-attachment, not in the abandonment of action, not in the abandonment of the fruits of action, but basically in creating a state of consciousness within ourselves that we could never be bound by the action, we could never be bound by the fruit of action. That is a state of eternal freedom by virtue of the attainment of bliss consciousness, by virtue of maintaining that bliss consciousness all the time. And this is by regular practice of meditation, whereby the very nature of the mind gets infused with the nature of the transcendental being, or the nature of pure consciousness, and then we naturally begin to live. We don't have to try hard in order to act in accordance with the principles of Karma Yoga. If we meditate, we begin to grow in freedom. Many of you who have been meditating for 1 or 2 years begin to feel that now they are active, yet they feel that nothing seems to bind them. You are active in the world because you have so many responsibilities, and you are going through all the thick and thin of the responsibilities of life, but you are aware that now your mind doesn't get attached to things. This is the growth of freedom in life.
You just say the Kundalini has risen, it is not coming up, it's just going there, as if you have become an instrument of some power which is flowing through you. And this is how we become one with that. And all our karmas dissolve into a karma. Karmas are only the effect of our false idea of our ego. When there is no ego, where are the karmas going to be? If there is no one who is doing, the doer is lost, then who is going to do the karmas? And who is going to take the load of the karmas upon themselves? You as ego disappear, and there is no effect of your karmas. All finished. All that was when one Mr. Ego was there. When Mr. Ego is gone, all liabilities have gone with him. Now we have become the self, the Atma, and when we have become the Atma, then we are one with that universal being, and he is making us do everything. Now there are people who get attached to someone, to one person, or to the family, to their children, to their relations. It's an individual journey towards God when you meditate. And when you reach there, then you become collective. Before that, it's an absolute individual journey within. Absolutely individual journey. You should be able to see this. That in this journey, nobody is your relation. Nobody is your brother. Nobody is your friend. You are absolutely alone. Absolutely alone. You have to move alone within yourself. Don't hate anyone. Don't be irresponsible. But be meditative. mood, you are alone. No one exists there. You alone. And once you enter into that ocean, then the whole world becomes your family. The whole world is your own manifestation. All the children become your children, and you treat all the people with equal understanding. The whole expansion takes place when you enter inside your spirit and see starting through the eyes of the spirit. With such calm, such peace, such bliss exists within you. You have to be ready for that journey. That journey is alone in your meditativeness. And the more you find something in your meditation, the more you want to go and distribute it to others. That has to be. If that does not come into you, then it has not worked. There's no purity. There's some sort of a bias. In that individual pursuit, whatever you find, you want to enjoy it with others. You want to give it to others. This is the sign of a person who has been really meditating. The one who is meditative and has not been able to distribute what he has found is cheating himself and cheating others as well. Depth you achieve within yourself spreads all over. It is such an action as reaction.
There is no karma for the self.
Для истинного «я» кармы нет.
There's only karma for ego.
Карма существует только для эго.
Okay?
Окей?
So better be the self.
То есть лучше будьте истинным «я».
The pure reality cannot have karma.
У чистой реальности не может быть кармы
Or drama.
или драмы.
The karma must be for the idea that the self has of what it is.
Карма может быть только для идеи, которая у истинного «я» есть о себе. Карма относится только к этой идее.
Karma is for like the person.
Карма — это как личность.
It is illusory,
Это иллюзорно.
like the person,
Точно так же, как и личность.
as appearances in the mind.
Это что-то, что появляется, это воображение в уме.
The person feels very real,
Личность кажется настолько реальной,
but when you look with the eyes of real investigation, it cannot be found.
но когда вы по-настоящему исследуете, смотрите глазами исследователя, невозможно обнаружить эту личность.
It's only an idea,
Вы не можете ее найти, это только идея.
and it's always changing.
И она всегда меняется.
What you identify, how you identified yourself when you were 10,
Как вы себя отождествляли, с чем вы себя отождествляли, когда вам было 10
by the
лет?
time you're 15, you have a different idea.
А когда вам было 15 лет, у вас уже другое было представление о себе.
At 20, you want to change the world.
В 20 лет вы хотите изменить мир.
At 25,
В 25,
whatever.
не знаю.
And so the self-image is always changing,
То есть вот так представление о себе постоянно меняется.
but the awareness does not change.
Но осознавание этого не меняется.
The real being does not change.
Настоящее истинное бытие не меняется.
Just the personality,
Только личностные аспекты меняются.
the idea we
Идея
have
о себе,
of who we are.
идея, которая у нас есть о себе, меняется. Представление о себе меняется.
It is not stable.
Оно нестабильно.
We think it is who we are
Мы думаем, что мы именно это представление.
because this idea depends upon the root being.
Потому что эта идея, она основывается на этом существе, вот на первоначальном существе,
Which is always present.
которое постоянно на первоначальном, нечто, которое всегда присутствует.
It is this that is manifesting as life.
И это то, что проявляется, как вся эта жизнь.
The mind is only the interpreting aspect,
А ум — это только интерпретирующий аспект,
the projecting aspect,
аспект проекции, проецирующий аспект,
that arises as names and forms,
который проявляется как имена и формы,
time and relationship.
как время и отношения.
Okay.
We build karma through thoughts.
I'd have to make this clear. Action is on many levels. You do physical action, mental action, emotional action, energy action. On all the 4 levels you build. And karma is stored. Karma is just information, I want you to understand this. Karma is just like software. You're unconsciously writing your own software. Every action, every thought, every emotion, every reverberation in the energy system is recorded. If it is not recorded, every time, every little thing, you will have to look at it like a fool, as if you look at it for the first time. You understand what I'm saying? Now, you know how to open that door, that's your karma. Because you lived in United States, you know how to open this door. You understand? If you came from somewhere else, you would come and look, where is the damn door handle? It's not there. Because your karma is elsewhere. Do you understand? So, if there was no karma like this, you would struggle with everything, isn't it? So, do not understand karma as it is being said, as if it's some kind of like a punishment or a reward. It's not in that context. It is just the residue of your action. Being exposed to certain things, you have taken in various impressions. A residue of these impressions stay, and slowly over a period of time they form tendencies. Is thought a karma? It is actually much more karma than physical action. Karma is always by volition, not by action. It is not just a physical action, it is a volition behind it which causes karma. So, karma is on all levels and it is stored on all levels. It is stored in the level of your memory, it is stored in the level of your chemistry, it is stored in the level of your physiology, it is stored in the level of your energy. So this will happen. The information technology is, going through the ceiling right now. Initially, if we had to write something, we wrote it on stone tablets. What could be written on 1,000 stone tablets could come into a small book. What could be put into 1,000 books went into a CD or something. What could go into 1,000 CDs is going to a small chip. And this is going like this. A day will come when all information will be stored on pure energy. I don't know whether science has explored this or not, but I know this because this is how my body is functioning. Your energies, each one of you, your energies themselves are carrying certain information and that's why they behave differently. If you stimulate them to the same degree, suppose I stimulate all your energies to the same degree, you will see each one of your energies behave differently depending upon what type of information it carries. The energy itself carries information. We can make it that way sometime in future. The electricity that is supplied to you itself carries information with it, that it will decide what should happen because the information is carried on the energy itself. A day will definitely come like that because it is already here, it's just a question of exploring it. So karma is stored on all levels. So if you lose your body, you can't lose it. If you lose your mind, you still can't lose it. These are backup systems.
action has got three forms. One is the latent action, that which is going to become an action, and action itself, and then impression of the action. It is the desire to act itself is a karma, means the seed of action. Seed of action is the latent karma. Action is when the seed has sprouted, become a tree. And the tree again becoming another seed is the impression of action. Because impression of action gives rise to more action. So karma simply means the strongest impression in the mind and the action that it has propelled and the impression it is going to produce on the mind in the future. So the whole universe is full of karma, means every cell of the body and every particle of this universe is filled with action. Means there is dynamism virtually everywhere. There is dynamism virtually everywhere. Every particle in this creation is full of dynamism. And so this universe is filled with karma. So when we normally speak in the language, I want to get rid of karma, we simply mean we want to get rid of the impression. Certain impressions we would like to have, certain we don't want to have. That is what is good karma and bad karma. The negative impressions are those which cause us pain and suffering. The positive impressions are those which gives you happiness and joy in life. So good karma means you have lots of good impressions in your consciousness, because that only gives rise to that type of fruit in your life. A lot of bad karma means lot of negative impressions in the mind, the consciousness. And how do you get rid of the negative impressions? By relaxing, by meditating, by doing pranayama, breathing techniques. All this would help to erase the negative impressions. But will it also erase the positive impressions? No. The positive impressions remain because it is in your very nature. See, when you are absolutely relaxed, you will have your positive qualities. But what you will not have when you are absolutely relaxed, when you are in yourself? The negative emotions you will not have. Negative impressions does not remain there. Right? But the attachment to a positive impression is also have to be gotten rid of. Because that also limits you. Nirvana is not just getting rid of negative emotions, it is also freeing yourself from the positive impressions as well. See, when we attach ourselves to the positive emotions, the positive impressions, then we limit our existence. Then what we are doing, when you think you are too good, you always find someone not so good and bad. So automatically this positive thinking of yours attracts some negative impressions from outside. Do you see what I'm saying? So, there is this saying that it's not just positive karma, negative karma, but also positive karma you have to get rid of. So how you do that? First, to get rid of the negative, you put the positive. There is a example that's usually given, has been given from thousands of years, is of alum. You know, when you want to purify water, what do you put? You put some alums in it. The alum first cleans all other impurities and dissolves itself. Doesn't remain in it. Alum also. You know, it evaporates. So similarly, positive impressions or karma is essential to get rid of negative karma, but then you are getting out of the positive also. I would give you an example of soap. When the cloth is dirty or your body is dirty, what do? You put on the soap. But you will have to wash away the soap also. Otherwise the soap itself will become dirt. You can't say, I paid so much money and I bought the soap, why should I wash it away? I paid so much money and bought shampoo, I would like to keep the shampoo on my head. No. Purpose of shampoo is to remove the dirt, and the shampoo is also gone. Right? So, Nirvana is when you are not attached to the positive impressions, emotions, actions as well. But that is the second step. First step is we need to have positive. If someone argues, when you have to anyway wash the soap away, why do you have to put it in the first place? You have to get rid of the shampoo, then why do you put it? It's no logic. Correct? So, Sat karma or positive karma is essential so that negative karma gets washed away. Right? So karma is what? Latent impression in the consciousness which propels you to do an action. And present action in turn creates impression in the consciousness which propels you to do again another action. It's the impression of action and its impact is all called karma. Got it? And this whole universe is full of impressions. And the skill is to live in karma yet not to be affected by it. This is what is yoga. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says it in a beautiful manner. One who sees action in inaction and inaction in action is the most intelligent of all men, women both. Means what? You see, there is so much activity in the depth of every action. There is some silence, there is inactivity, there is that stillness in all activity. Recognizing the stillness, and stillness is our self. It is a witness to all the action. And in our self is all this activity. The whole universe is present in consciousness. So action in inaction is seeing the consciousness in the active universe and seeing the universe in the vast consciousness. This recognition is called freedom. Freedom doesn't mean stopping action. It's doing action yet being a witness to it. Another example for this would be a baby taken to a pediatrician, and the pediatrician gives a prick, a vaccination to the baby, and the baby starts crying, even before giving the vaccination or the injection, the moment the pediatrician takes the syringe, the baby started having the pain and started crying. On the other side, a mature person going to a doctor, smiling, laughing, and asks the doctor to give me a prick, it's better. I don't want to gulp the tablet, give me an injection. So even injection is being given, he's just smiling and talking. Not that he's not having pain, the pain is there, but it is next to nothing. Yeah? That same way, we have to keep acting, yet not get attached to the action. See, in our day-to-day life, there are many actions which doesn't give us impressions. Like every day you brush your teeth, you have your tea, you eat your food, but those things doesn't become a big impression. Huh? Every day you have breakfast, you don't take the same breakfast. You take different things on different days. But if you are used to caffeine, and if you don't have caffeine one day, it causes you headache. That is a karma, that is coffee karma. They are used to having tea every day 6 o'clock, you don't have tea, and it causes problem for you, headache for you. Then that is tea karma. Now either you continue having that tea karma, or a few days you say, no, I'm going to detoxify my system. I'm not going to get into the habit. I'm going to put a stop. So you take a decision not to be swayed away by that. Then you are getting over the coffee karma. Then whether you have coffee or not, it doesn't matter to you. It is not going to adversely affect you. Then you are free from that karma. But having something or not having something, all habits, all addictions are nothing but karma. Induced karma. We have imposed those things, induced. When you are getting out of those habits means you have erased those karmas from your consciousness. Similarly, impressions in the day-to-day activity. We are engaged in so many activities in day-to-day life that all those impressions in the mind, we carry on with them, with us. And when you meditate, what is happening? You are releasing all those impressions. You are getting rid of all those impressions. Mind becomes hollow and empty. Clear, hollow. Then you are in touch with your intuition. You are in touch with a clear intuition, more and more with your intuition. So there are 3 types of karma. Prarabdha karma means some certain karma which we have to experience, which has already started yielding fruits. In the Sanchita karma, those impressions which we have stored but which has, which has come from the past. And then Agami karma, those which would in the future give its impact, effect. So the Sanchita, accumulated karma of the past can be gotten rid of. Agami karma, the karma which has not yet given the fruit, which might happen in the future, we can get rid of. But prarabdha, which is already here, existing, which has started yielding fruit, there is no escape. You have to experience them. Everybody has to experience the prarabdha. But which is what is very difficult to say. So in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, Gahana karmano gati, means it's unfathomable are the ways of karma. You can never pinpoint any one karma This is what this is. Gahana karmano gati. Which would sprout when you don't know. See, in a field, you have thrown the seeds of groundnuts, sunflower, mango. They all will sprout at different times. Though you might have thrown all that at once, the mango will take several years to sprout, several years to yield fruit. Groundnuts will give you in a couple of months. Sunflower, few more months, few more weeks. So different seeds sprouts at different time. Similarly, different karma will start acting or functioning at different time in life. That's why it's a gahana karmano gati. You never know. It's unfathomable. And the final word of Lord Krishna is, don't worry about it. Don't worry. Just do what you have to do your duty. Act and don't worry about the result of the fruit of the action. Just relax. That advice is very, very good. This is even the most learned are confused when it comes to karma, because gahana karmano gati, unfathomable are the ways of the karma. And there are various levels of karma. Individual karma, there is a family karma, there's every family DNA. DNAs are all nothing but karma. Impressions, particular DNA, our genes are part of karma. In genes there's sanchita. But by practice of meditation and pranayama, certain genes which would produce diseases can be suppressed. There is a scientific research to this effect in Oslo. Dr. Fari is doing research and others, he and his other team. They have said that there are 300 chromosomes in our system which causes cancer and heart problem and blood pressure. And these get suppressed when one starts doing pranayama and sudarshan kriya and meditation. They get suppressed. But already, if they're already active, then one has to experience. And there could be sometimes pranayama, all this can reverse all those effect also, because it suppresses the genes. So unfathomable are the ways of karma. And there is family karma of genes, and then there is collective karma of a city or a village or a town. And nations do have karma. It is very interesting. From a bigger perspective, it's so amazing to look at the play and display of karma. And karma is the best way to understand the phenomena which you can never understand otherwise. You wonder why there was a tsunami and selected people from all over. They were all caught up right on that day only there and got affected. And why, in spite of a big plane crash, one man walks out without getting hurt. There were so many in the plane, everybody expired, but one gentleman walks out of the plane. How do you explain this? That is karma. That man was supposed to be in a plane and accident. But he also had a long life. He had many other actions to do. Other mission he has to accomplish in his life. These impressions pull him out of the wreckage of a plane as well. So, unfathomable are the ways of karma. Gahana karmano gati.
Life is karma. What is karma? It's experiences. Things that happen to you in your life. The thoughts that you are thinking. Your actions. All these are karma. Where did they come from? Not from vacuum. You planted these seeds in another lifetime. You decided what you are going to go through. And that is happening now. Karma is the law of causality. You do something and then it creates a set of reaction. To make it simple, you did some good things and these good things create certain reactions resulting in reward. You come back next lifetime to collect the good reward. But if you do something bad, then you come back to go through the pain of your bad actions. If anyone realizes that all his actions produce reactions, good or bad, then he will refrain from doing bad actions, because bad actions are going to give you bad results, pain, suffering, diseases, etc. If not now, in the next lifetime. Understanding karma is very crucial for human evolution. But unfortunately, people think that karma is a philosophical concept and then ask where is the proof that there is afterlife. It is short-sightedness. But soon there will be proof from science. Science is evolving. Science will be able to prove the continuance or the continuation of life even after someone dies. What dies is not the soul, but only the body. It's the soul that carries the karmic impressions, and these karmic impressions create another body, so that you will have to pay for those good or bad karma, and then learn from that. Karma is, in this way, a way or a means through which the soul learns and evolves.